Nigel and I are married into a wealthy family. On the night we got our marriage certificate, he stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, smoked all night, and then told me that he had a girl he liked. The girl was poor, tough, and untainted by the world. I was silent for a moment and didn't tell him that I had actually been secretly in love with him for many years. I asked, "What should I do then?" He smiled, a little coldly. "In 2 years, I will never be the person I am today who can be manipulated by others. When the time comes, we will divorce. But don't worry, I will compensate you and the Parker family." I agreed, but when that day really came, he was unhappy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. 3 months into my marriage to Nigel, I finally met Selena. That day was my birthday. The Nelsons started preparing half a month in advance, and they wanted the venue, desserts, and drinks, everything to be the best. I heard someone exclaim, "The old Nelson really cares about his granddaughter-in-law. I think the most powerful people in City B are all here." That's true. However, even so, an accident happened. The chandelier above my head suddenly fell down. At that time, there was only me and a waiter down there. The surroundings suddenly became chaotic. Just as I was about to avoid them, I saw Nigel pushing through the crowd and rushing towards me. Then he reached over me and grabbed the waiter. The end result was that my arm was hit and cut, while the waiter was held in Nigel's arms and hugged tightly. I've never been so embarrassed. But soon, Nigel reacted. He let go of the person in his arms, came over, picked me up, and took me to the hospital. So no one cared about what happened just now. When I woke up, I saw Nigel standing at the window of the ward, answering the phone. He said, "You shouldn't have come today. What would I do if you got hurt? I will divorce her eventually. Wait for me." Okay, just 2 sentences. Then I realized that the waitress was Selena, the girl he wanted to marry but failed to marry. He turned around and saw that I was awake, and breathed a sigh of relief. I wanted to laugh, but I just couldn't. He walked up to me and raised an eyebrow. "Are you awake?" I said yes. In the 3 months since we got married, we seemed to respect each other. In fact, except for the night we got our marriage certificate, we hardly spoke to each other. At this moment, it was extremely quiet. After a long while, he said, "Don't you want an explanation from me?" I said no. I already guessed who that person was. He chuckled. "You're just as smart as you were in school." After he left, my friends came to visit me. The Nelson family is in chaos right now. But when Nigel carried you over here just now, he was so anxious. Does this count as a secret love coming true? Or is this marriage first and love later? I'm so happy for you. When you first got married, I was worried about you. But now, I think it's only a matter of time before you win this beautiful girl. The sunlight pours in from the window. I suddenly remembered that half an hour ago, I was opening presents in my room. I opened the box till the end and finally saw Nigel's. It's a necklace. Very famous brand. I put it on immediately. And just now, I saw a bracelet of the same brand on Selena's hand. The gift that surprised me so much turned out to be just a bracelet he bought for someone else. I suddenly said, "I have already promised to divorce him in 2 years. My friend stood up suddenly, as if he had thought of something, and asked me in surprise and anger, "Huh? Why? Are you crazy? Is he keeping a mistress outside?" I smiled. That's not the case. Nigel is not that kind of person. On the contrary, he protected Selena very well. He loved her patiently, fearing that someone with bad intentions would cause trouble for her, and also afraid that she would bear any bad reputation. Apart from me, only a few close friends around him knew that he fell in love with a girl who did not belong to our class. No, as for the reason, I can't tell you yet. No matter what, it's already been decided. I will definitely do what I promised. Spend my whole life with a man who doesn't love me, and the practical benefits he may bring to me and the Parker family. Everyone knows how to choose. My friend was stunned for a moment but didn't ask any more questions. Finally, she just said, "But you have liked him for so many years." I sighed. So what? I met Nigel when I was 16 and sat at the same table with him for half a year. I was sick, so he carried me to the infirmary and stayed with me the whole morning, missing a very important basketball game. When other people talked about how my mother was a mistress and that I was an illegitimate daughter, he would curse them back and teach me to hold my head high. We have participated in math competitions and hosted New Year's Eve parties together. He said everything went well for me, And I said let's start a new journey together. Yet, at 23, nearly engaged, we sat across from each other at the same table. He looked at me strangely and only said, "Have we met before?" He forgot about me. This moment, I was speechless. In fact, I haven't changed much. I'm still quiet, with long hair and a blue skirt. And I don't smile much. The only thing that has changed, it was probably just that she put some light makeup on her plain face back then. But I just don't remember. Those things that I regarded as my life-saving straw were just something he did casually. He is just a nice person, not nice to me. So I just smiled and pretended not to care. Have you forgotten? Class 7, Grade 1. I'm Rachel. Nigel raised his eyes and his frown relaxed. He sighed. It's you. The day I was discharged from the hospital, Nigel came to pick me up personally. There were a lot of things piled up in the ward, including fruit baskets and flower bouquets sent by friends and relatives, as well as my toiletries and spare clothes. He put everything away carefully and went to complete the discharge procedures. When he went downstairs, he was carrying large and small bags. There were a lot of people in the elevator. He stood next to me, leaning slightly forward to protect me. Even at this time, he remained calm. There was no sign of embarrassment at all. After getting out of the elevator, I sincerely said thank you to him. Nigel glanced at me. Why are you being so polite? After all, having said this, he paused. No more words. He looked past me in the other direction. I followed his gaze. Then I saw Selena. She was dressed simply, holding a bag of medicine in her hand, and walking out with the support of a middle-aged woman. I observed for a moment and found that the middle-aged woman had a limp in her left leg and was not walking smoothly. I withdrew my thoughts and looked back, but Nigel had left. He walks very fast. I hurriedly chased after him. I don't know if it was because I wanted to talk to him so much or because I was really curious. But I said something inexplicably. Why don't you go over and take a look? I can go back by myself. After saying this, Nigel suddenly stopped. I bumped into his back. He lowered his head, his expression indifferent. No need. Let's go. I nodded blankly, and then I heard his voice again. It was light and yet contained a hint of warning. Rachel, I told you what happened between her and me because I didn't want to cause any more trouble. But if that's the case, you think you can interfere in our affairs, then you are wrong. The hospital lobby was crowded with people, so I quickly lowered my eyes and said, "Oh, sorry. I spoke too much." He cherishes Selena so much. So naturally he doesn't want outsiders to see her miserable state, despise her or look down on her. From that day on, I never mentioned Selena again. Neither did Nigel. But I know that he has always paid attention to her. We live together. So it's inevitable that we hear things we shouldn't hear. So I knew that Nigel secretly arranged a job for Selena. The salary is high and can be considered decent. In order to protect Selena's self-esteem, he went through several layers of connections. And even the person who finally handled it didn't know that it was actually Nigel who wanted to do it. It can be said that it is well-intentioned. There are many more things like this. As time went by, even I felt that if they didn't end up together in the future, it must be because God was cruel and didn't want lovers to end up together. My relationship with Nigel has always been lukewarm. He originally felt somewhat guilty about my injury, but it was my fault that I didn't have a brain and used that one sentence to wear away that guilt. It was 2 months later that our relationship reconciled. Of course, it's also because of Selena. Her mother, the middle-aged woman that day, had been in a car accident a few years ago and had difficulty walking. Go for a checkup every few months. It was raining that day, and when I was collecting clothes at the doorstep, I accidentally fell and hit my head. I was seen by my neighbor and was sent to the hospital. It just so happened that Nigel was in another city at the time, attending a meeting that lasted the entire day. Selena couldn't get through to him on the phone, so she had no other choice but to go to Nelson's house. That day, Mrs. Lou bought a few pieces of jewelry at an auction and called me over to pick two. Halfway through picking, I heard someone knocking on the door. For some reason, my eyelids twitched twice, so I stopped the nanny who was about to open the door and went to open it myself. I opened the door and saw Selena's pale and helpless face. She saw me, was startled for a moment, then pursed her lips and said, "I'm looking for Nigel." I haven't spoken yet. The old Nelson came out and said in a very authoritative voice, "Rachel, who's here? It sounds like they're looking for Selena." I was startled and my eyes met with Selena's. Then he turned around, smiled softly, and took Selena's hand, exposing her to the Nelson family. "Grandpa, this is my friend. He came to see me." The old Nelson looked at us meaningfully for a long time and then nodded. "Go ahead and do whatever you need. I'll ask the driver to take you there." I said okay, and then took Selena out of Nelson's house. I didn't ask the driver to take me there. Instead, he found Nigel's car from the garage. Selena initially refused to get in the car. She asked me, "Do you know where Nigel went?" After I married Nigel, she unilaterally blocked Nigel. The last time they contacted was on my birthday. The phone used was Nigel's assistant's. In some ways, she is indeed a very proud and tough girl. I rolled down the car window and my face turned colder. "He can't come back. You came to see him. It must be urgent. If he can do it, so can I. Get in the car. I'll help you." "Forget it." After saying that, Selena looked at me deeply and then sat in the passenger seat. She gave the address of the hospital. I didn't hesitate and drove straight ahead. When we got there, I helped with the paperwork and paid the fees, and through a friend's connection, I found the best doctor in the hospital. After I finished my work, I went to the door of the operating room and saw Nigel. Across the corridor, a dusty man was squatting, comforting the girl he loved. He reached out his hand, wiped her tears, then took off his suit jacket and put it on her. He told her, "I am responsible for everything." Selena nodded, her eyes red. "Okay, I think I'm not needed here anymore." I left the hospital, opened Nigel's chat box, and briefly told him what had happened. Then I went home, took a shower, and waited for his news. At 1 o'clock in the morning, he replied to me, just 2 sentences. "Good, thanks." I didn't see Nigel again until the next evening. I was coming downstairs in my pajamas and bumped into him. His body stiffened. He looked at me, and was stunned for a moment. I didn't ask about Selena, but Nigel actually said it on his own initiative. After saying this, he raised his eyes and added another sentence. "She asked me to explain to you that she didn't mean to do that on your birthday. She didn't know it was Nelson's house." I was a little surprised. "Look at Nigel." After a moment, I nodded. "Okay, I understand." After that day, thanks to Selena, we became inexplicably closer. When I went to Nelson's house again, Nigel would take the initiative to pick food for me, accompany me for walks, and occasionally when he lowered his head to talk to me, there was a hint of tenderness in his expression. After graduation, I opened a studio with my friends and it's doing pretty well. I am very busy every day and my schedule is almost the same as his. It's been a long time. He also picks me up from get off work, prepares breakfast for me, and asks if there is anything I want when I am on a business trip. He buys whatever I say. He would also buy things for Selena, but he never asked her and never gave them to her in person. Those things were delivered to her in all kinds of strange ways. Raffles, giveaways, company annual meeting gifts. He put a lot of thought into it for her. She was a proud girl, and she clearly wrote an IOU for the surgery fee and refused to owe Nigel a penny. The reason I said I owed Nigel was that shortly after that day, Nigel gave me a black card, saying that it contained my living expenses and the surgery fee I paid for Selena. Once, Nigel came back from outside. He was drunk, lying on the sofa, and said to me, "She's in love." I was stunned, feeling a little sad for him. "Huh?" He laughed. "Do you think she doesn't believe me at all?" I don't believe I can compare to those people. Simply put, he felt that Selena did not believe that he could break free from the control of the Nelson family, divorce as agreed, and then marry her. Nigel's parents died early, and he grew up with the old Nelson. He has no brothers, but has 2 cousins. There are also several uncles. None of them are easy to deal with. Over the years, they have been competing secretly, all wanting to be the real person in charge of the Nelson family. Nigel had suffered a lot at their hands. When he had just graduated, he had also started his own business, but every time he was about to make progress, he would be schemed against and ruined completely. Otherwise, he would have left the Nelson family and been with Selena long ago. He could endure hardship, but he couldn't bear to see Selena suffer poverty with him. To be honest, Nigel is young and has a shallow foundation. He cannot compare to the other directors of Lou Corporation. The old Nelson loved him, but he was old after all, and the Nelson family would be handed over to them sooner or later. And I am the daughter-in-law chosen by the old Nelson for Nigel. Sometimes, I wonder too. I have liked him for so many years, and we even got married and are a legitimate couple. We swore in front of all the guests to stick together through thick and thin and to support each other until old age. How could it be that there was just that little bit missing? I wish I were a little more vicious. So what if two people love each other? In 2 years. What if he falls in love with me? But this thought only flashed through my mind. I have liked Nigel for 7 years. I want him to get what he wants more than anyone else. So I said, I believe it. He suddenly raised his eyes and smiled softly. Finally, he closed his eyes and murmured, whether it was drunken talk or dream talk, you are such a good girl. Why did you marry me? After this day, he became even busier. I guess he was afraid that Selena would actually marry someone else. Nigel was very nice to me, and in return I would iron his shirts and cook for him a few times. I am quite talented in cooking and Nigel is very considerate and always finishes the meal. Before I got married, he was the only one living in this villa, and it was extremely monotonous. I can't get used to it. At first, I just decorated my room with all kinds of dolls and furniture. When he saw it, he said, I didn't realize you like to mess around. In the end, the bedroom was not big enough for me. A lot of things were gradually added to the living room and study. Of course, Nigel's bedroom is one I rarely go into. After dinner, I would curl up on the sofa and read a magazine with a movie in front of me. Every time Nigel saw this, he would frown and ask, are you reading a magazine or a movie? I don't know when he would sit down patiently and watch an entire movie next to me. Gradually, he also understood my preferences. You know I look introverted, but actually I love crowds, fireworks, and everything bright. Knowing that I don't eat seafood, I have a light taste and love sweets. But that's all. We just get along in peace. Nigel rarely mentions Selena anymore, but I have met her several times and know that she has been in and out of relationships. But none of them lasted long. One of her boyfriends is a businessman. Somehow, I found out about Nigel and Selena. He actually used Nigel's name to negotiate business with others. Later I lost money. Those people found their way directly to the house. Nigel wasn't around, so I was the one who solved it in the end. After he came back, he sat in the living room for a long time, and finally knocked on my door, handed me a cup of hot milk, and said, go to bed early. 2 days later, I ran into them arguing in a cafe. Can you please stop being unreasonable? I remember you weren't like this before, Selena said with red eyes. Yes, I have changed. She is so good, so kind, and well matched with you. You two should just live your life well. Why do you have to torment me? Nigel lowered his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. You think she likes me? Selena bit her lip. No matter what, don't show up in front of me again. I will never marry you in my life. After a long time, Nigel nodded. Okay, he said without looking at Selena again. Just turn around and walk out. We are all women, and I can see that she is doing this because she is angry with Nigel. He is married, so she also wants to have a relationship. There are so many men pursuing her. Why should she keep waiting for a married man? I had no interest in getting involved in their affairs, so I just ignored it. But after that, Nigel didn't send anything to Selena for a long time. In fact, there were some ambiguous moments between Nigel and I. We occasionally stayed at Nelson's house. Of course, we live in one room. In the beginning, Nigel would sleep on the floor, but after a long time, it is inevitable that people will find out. Mrs. Lou was originally very satisfied with me as her granddaughter-in-law. After knowing this, she pulled me into the room and asked me inquiringly, why are you so ignorant? Selena is young, and you have been married for so long. If his grandfather and his uncles knew about it, there would be a big fuss. Besides, it's time for you to have a child. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but no words came out. Finally, I nodded. Okay. On that day, Mrs. Lou sent a lot of supplements to the villa. There is also a nanny, said to let her take care of our daily life. Given the awkward situation between Nigel and I originally thought he would refuse, but he turned his head and looked at me first. Then he nodded casually. Okay. I was silent for a moment, thinking that he might want to reassure the two elders, so I didn't say anything more. Since then, he has moved to my room. I asked him, aren't you disgusted? He raised his eyebrows. It's too quiet over there. It will give away the truth. We sleep in the same bed, with 2 quilts, but I don't sleep well, and I woke up several times with my hands on his neck. I'm sorry. He just smiled and said, it's okay. After all, I took your place. One time, I was sleeping so soundly that my hand slapped him on the face and touched his lips. Before I could react, Nigel grabbed me. In the dim room, he held my hand with sleepy eyes. Be honest. I nodded blankly. Oh, when we had been married for more than a year, Nigel was suspended because of problems in a branch company he was in charge of. At the same time, one of his cousins gave birth to a son. At the full moon party, the old Nelson waved his hand and gave the little guy 3% of the shares. Nigel was sitting next to me. He was still smiling, but I could see that he was not happy. I want to comfort you. Wanted to pat his arm, but as soon as I touched him, he grabbed my hand. He was very strong and I couldn't break free. We interlocked our fingers, and the warmth from his palms turned into a dense layer of sweat when it reached me. When we returned that day, he held my hand as we walked out of Nelson's house. I sighed silently in my heart. The next day, I went back to Parker's house and found my father. I am indeed an illegitimate child. It turns out that my mother was also a rich girl and she was a childhood sweetheart of my father. When they were in love, my mother's family went bankrupt. In order not to delay my father, she left her hometown while pregnant. So, he got married and had children, and she raised the children alone. When I was 16, my father found out about my mother and me. He traveled a long way to find us and told us that his wife had passed away 2 years ago and he was willing to take us back. My mother was not in good health at that time, but she agreed. My mother passed away when I was a senior in high school. I was crying my eyes out in the stairwell, and only Nigel passed by and gave me a handful of candy. I kept that handful of candy for many years, and then watched it rot. So, my relationship with my dad is actually very normal. I've grown up to this size. I only asked him twice. The first time was when the Nelson family was interested in forming an alliance with the Parker family. But my father felt that the Nelson family had complicated interpersonal relationships and was too deep in the water. So he did not agree to let me marry into the family. But I don't care. I found my father and told him that I was willing to marry him. At that time, I didn't know that he actually had a girl he liked. If I had known, I would not have let myself fall to this point today. Yes, I also asked myself, how come Nigel has a girl he likes? When he was in school, he was a favored child who was the center of attention. It's not that there were no girls chasing after him. Some were pure, some were sweet, some were charming, each one more beautiful than the other. But he didn't even look at it. At that time, he and I were desk mates. His good friend teased him in front of me, saying, "There are so many girls. Brother Lou, is there really no one you like?" Nigel looked up indifferently. No. I was sitting next to him at the time, and I thought to myself, this man is so cold-hearted that I'm afraid he will never be easily moved by anyone in his life. The man tooted. Well, I wouldn't find it strange even if you marry a fairy in the future. Later, I married Nigel, which was also a sensation. Overnight, there were a lot of unread messages on my phone. Everyone asked me, "Are you going to marry Nigel?" And the second thing is this moment. I hope my dad can help Nigel. He looked at me for a long time and finally frowned. "I heard he treats you normally." I said stubbornly, "No, he is very nice to me." My dad sighed and finally waved his hand. "Let's go back." My dad acted quickly and the issue with that branch company was resolved soon. When I got the news, I hurried home. I coughed twice when I went out in the morning and my throat felt uncomfortable. He noticed it and said he would make soup for me in the evening. I walked in and he had just finished and was about to send me a message. I ran up to him, showing him what I had in my hand with rare joy. "Are you happy?" He looked at me for a long time before looking away. He responded softly, raised his hand, and ruffled my hair naturally. "Yeah, of course." I didn't find out until much later. This time, he was just retreating to advance. I was actually doing more harm than good. The next night, we made an appointment to celebrate together outside. But when the time came, Nigel didn't show up. I called him, but his phone was turned off. His assistant also said he didn't know where Nigel was. I waited until the restaurant closed and then had to go home. But when I opened the door, I saw an unexpected person. It's Selena. The ends of her hair were wet, probably because she had just taken a shower, and she was still wearing Nigel's shirt. I came to my senses in an instant. I asked myself what I was so happy about. His joy and his future were not meant to be shared with me. I smiled at her, changed my shoes and walked inside. Nigel was lying on the sofa, already asleep. As I passed him, the blanket slipped off him and fell to the ground. I was about to pick it up when Selena came over and took it from me. She leaned forward, her movements gentle. Nigel grabbed her arm. The voice was very low. "Don't go." Selena smiled and said, "We just happened to meet outside. I was being harassed by a client and drank a little too much. He was worried and brought me back. Don't get me wrong. Selena was too tired and fell asleep. I said, oh, then take good care of him." Having said that, he went upstairs and fell into a deep sleep. Get a divorce now. Whoever wants to be Mrs. Lou can be her. The next morning, I woke up and saw Nigel standing at the head of my bed. His eyes were dim and his voice was a little deep. "Rachel, you have a really big heart. Other women are entering your house, and you are sleeping here." I woke up in an instant. Huh? Who else is here? Nigel frowned and stopped talking. I reacted. She is not an outsider. In fact, it won't be long before she will be the hostess here. Nigel looked at me, sighed, and finally just said, "Yesterday I waved my hands and said, it doesn't matter." I didn't wait long. I ate all of it by myself. You didn't get to eat it. You're unlucky. After I finished speaking, Nigel was speechless and smiled softly. "Well, I'm unlucky. Then you can take me with you to try it next time." I didn't think much about it and nodded. Then she pushed him out and said, "I need to change my clothes." When I heard the door close, I sat on the bed and was in a daze for a long time. A very sudden moment. There was a chill on my face. I raised my hand to touch it, and then I realized that I was actually crying. How can I not be sad these days? After all, there were a few moments when I thought that Nigel might like me a little bit. But no. But I actually lied to him too. I actually didn't eat a single bite of last night's meal. So I have no idea whether it was delicious or not. Also, I won't take him out to eat anymore. That's it between us. After that day, I rarely took the initiative to talk to Nigel anymore. I gave the nanny a holiday, saying that I wanted to go out and relax. And when Nigel was away, I put his things back to his room. In the morning, I would deliberately get up half an hour earlier. After get off work, I would linger for a while before going downstairs. Nigel sent me messages, and I only selectively responded. Even if he was a fool, he should have noticed something was wrong. So, one day when I woke up, I saw him standing outside my door with a sleepless face. He stared at me for a moment with dark eyes. "What's wrong with you? What do you mean recently?" I looked at him and said, "It's nothing. Please move aside. I have to go to work." He stood in front of me, motionless. I raised my head, my tone a little impatient. "I do live in your place, spend your money, and wear the clothes you bought. But if it's because of this, you think you can control my affairs. But you are wrong." After saying this, I suddenly felt that this sentence seemed a little familiar. Where did you hear it last time? As soon as I thought of this, Nigel's phone rang. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone, and looked at me one last time. "Whatever it is, we'll talk about it later tonight." I didn't take it seriously and left after washing up. I didn't go back that night. In fact, I wasn't avoiding him on purpose. The studio negotiated a deal some time ago and needed to go out of town. And this was originally done by a friend. But she accidentally sprained her foot that day and couldn't walk at all. I had no choice but to take this matter on. It was already 10 o'clock in the evening when I arrived in City A by plane. I turned on my phone and saw that Nigel had called me several times. Sent a lot of messages. The bottom two are, "Address, I'll pick you up." I thought about it and replied to him, "No, I'll be back in 2 days." He replied quickly, like a sigh of relief, "Okay, I'll wait for you to come back." I stayed in City A for 2 months and got to know a lot of people. There was an internet celebrity who was pretty and got along well with me. She even asked me quietly, "Wow, you are actually a rich girl, right?" I subconsciously asked back, "Huh?" She went on to say, "I've seen your photo. You're married to a wealthy family. A perfect match. How is it? Are you happy with your life?" I didn't ask her where she saw my photo. The circle is so small, and City A and City B are close to each other. When Nigel and I got married, many of his brothers posted photos on IG Moments. I would also like to add that they are a perfect match. Of course, it wasn't long before Nigel asked them to delete the photos. He said he was not used to the high profile. But I know that he just doesn't like me being the one around him. Are you happy? Maybe there are. But life is so long and people are all made of flesh and blood. It is really hard not to be sad when being forgotten and ignored all the time. But at this moment, I have no interest in discussing this with an outsider. It's pretty good. She raised an eyebrow. Really? I said. Yeah. I said the same thing to the Nelson family and to my dad when he asked me. I've said it so many times that even I'm starting to believe it. But fake is fake. Nigel would message me every day. He wasn't a talkative person before. So it's strange that he suddenly became like this. Sometimes I reply. Sometimes I don't. On the day I returned to City B, a photo of Nigel and Selena having dinner together was taken and posted online. It was no secret that he was married. As soon as this photo appeared, it caused an uproar. Only then did I know that the old Nelson was in the hospital. During this period, the shares of the Lou Group had been falling again and again, and the internal situation was very unstable. Nigel's tactics were swift. In just a few days, he united the company's directors and shocked his uncles and brothers. The old Nelson said on his sickbed that Nigel would take over the group's affairs from now on. But at this juncture, this romantic scandal was caught by someone. As soon as I got off the plane, reporters who had received the news in advance surrounded me. Miss Rachel, your husband is being intimate with another woman during marriage. What do you think? How else can I see it? Of course, I wish them a happy marriage. But I can't say this. Facing the camera, I acted surprised and said, the woman you are talking about is my friend. I know about their meeting this time. My husband is a very good man and he would never do such a thing. After saying that, I pushed through the crowd and walked out. When I walked out of the airport, it was windy outside. Fallen leaves floated in front of me, and I suddenly realized that it was already late autumn. I have been married to Nigel for 1 year and 7 months. After a while, I received a call from Nigel. His voice is hoarse. I saw what you said. I said, oh, and asked casually, how can you be so careless? You can be photographed even when you're having a meal. Sigh. Nigel was silent for a moment. She found me downstairs at the company and said she wanted to pay me back and have a final meal together. I looked at the people coming and going around me. In fact, I didn't care much about what he said. I just said, Then I said, congratulations. You got what you wanted. I also saw the photo of you and Selena. It's so strange. You looked better than the one on our marriage certificate. I remember that on the day we got the marriage certificate, the staff asked you to smile, but you couldn't smile at all. Nigel, let's go get the divorce certificate in a few days. As for when to announce the news to the public, it's up to you. I can wait. There was silence for a moment. I heard the sound of a lighter lighting up. Nigel's voice was also muffled. He said, you must tell me this at this juncture. His breath hitched. Let's talk later. Nigel has become very busy. I always wanted to find a chance to talk to him, but he was never available. I stayed at the old Nelson and ran between the hospital and the studio. The old Nelson gradually regained consciousness and would talk to me sometimes. My grandson is too sharp, but I feel relieved when you are here. You are a good girl, and Grandpa trusts you very much. I pursed my lips. I'm a little hesitant to respond to this. The old Nelson laughed. He hasn't been to that woman for a long time, has he? I was stunned. You. The old Nelson snorted. He thought he had kept it a secret. But I knew it a long time ago. That girl is arrogant and unstable. If she stays with him, something bad will happen sooner or later. I'm a little confused. It turns out that the old Nelson knew about it. I thought about it and decided not to hide it anymore. Nigel and I, we are going to. The old Nelson was defeated. Take your time. Over time, he will know your good points. Besides, you have liked him for a long time. Right. I let out a cry. He reminisced for a moment. When Selena was in high school, she broke her leg playing basketball and took half a month off. You came to her house every day to deliver her homework. Later, your dad brought you to Nelson's house, and I recognized you at first sight. Girl. At this moment, for no reason, tears suddenly filled my eyes. Grandfather. It turns out to be like this. No wonder he picked me out at first sight and visited me in person several times. After a while, the old Nelson fell asleep. I'm done crying too. I glanced at my eyes on the phone screen. It's swollen, but fortunately it's not very obvious. But as soon as I opened the door of the ward, I saw Nigel standing outside. I don't know how much I heard. He lowered his eyes and looked at me. After a long time, he reached out his hand, wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes with his fingertips, and sighed. What do you want to eat later? Not long after, the old Nelson was discharged from the hospital. He also handed over all the company's affairs to Nigel. I don't know what evidence those uncles and brothers had on them, but they were completely controlled by Nigel. Just like what Nigel said the night we got the marriage certificate. He is no longer the same person he was before. No one can influence his decision anymore. I took some time to visit Nelson's home, and the old Nelson seemed to be in much better health. I finally told him that I was divorcing Nigel. After listening to this, the two elders of the Nelson family were silent for a long time. If you have really made up your mind, we have no objection. Naturally, my dad also supported my idea. See, when I told you that he treated you normally, you refused to admit it. I'm a man, your father, and I'm better at judging men than you are. After all, I have lived here for more than a year, and Nigel has been deliberately indulging me. So I have a lot of things in the villa. It took me a whole day to move all these things out. I was finishing up the last few items when Nigel came back. He stared at me and asked knowingly, "What are you doing?" I stood up and said, "It's very simple. Didn't we agree that we will get divorced when you become the true heir of the Liu family?" Nigel took a deep breath. "I don't want to leave. Is that okay?" I looked at him, a little confused. "Why? Isn't this what you always wanted to do?" He smiled, as if he thought I was naive. "Rachel, people change." "Yes. Then how can you be sure that I will not change? You heard it outside the ward that day, right?" "Yes. I admit that I have liked you for many years. But now, I don't like you anymore." His face was slightly stiff. "Am I not good to you?" "Yes. He is nice to me, but the better he treats me, the greedier I become. The greedier I am, the easier it is to be disappointed." I looked up. "Nigel." He responded quietly. "Yeah, did you really just realize that I like you?" Nigel's expression changed slightly. I continued speaking. "You're so smart. You must have figured it out a long time ago, right? So, at the beginning, you treated her well in front of me without any scruples, helped her arrange work, and gave her gifts. Didn't you just want me to give up? Now, I have done what you wished for. You were the one who first proposed the divorce. What? Now that you refuse to divorce me, should I just pretend that these things never happened?" I was surprisingly calm as I said these words. Nigel turned his head away. Feeling a little embarrassed for a moment, I handed him what I had in my hand. "This is the necklace you gave me last year. I only wore it once, so I'm giving it back to you. Over the past year, you have helped me, and I have helped you. We no longer owe each other anything." After that day, Nigel came to see me several times, but I have always been rejected. I don't want to talk about anything other than divorce. The last time, he finally compromised. Only in this way can your heart not be untied. Right. Actually, I don't have any worries anymore. But I still nodded in agreement with what he said. Yes. His eyes dimmed and his gaze fell on me. He concealed the emotions in his eyes and finally smiled gently. Good. He was very generous and gave me all the benefits he had promised me. No more and no less. After that, I met Selena once more. She looked a little thinner than the last time we met, and was stunned when she saw me. In the end, I was the first to speak. "You look like you're doing well." She sneered. "Yeah, Nigel's cousin gave me $500,000 and asked me to ask Nigel out. And it would be best if we could do something intimate. But he was actually on guard against me and wouldn't let me get close to him at all." I think of that photo. Really, the Nelsons started preparing half a month in advance, and they wanted the venue, desserts, and drinks, everything to be the best. I laughed. Is it him who won't let you? Or is it you who doesn't want to? She was aloof and refused to take Nigel's money, but took other people's. But now that I have the money, I can't bear to give it to the man I love. Selena's head snapped up. He asked me sharply, "What about you?" "He wanted to divorce you from the beginning, but you still spoke up for him." I said, "Because he is a really good man. Even if there are misunderstandings and disputes between us, I will never forget them. He once gave me a handful of candy,